Hello there, this is Alexander from Sinesquares.net, and today we're checking out a pedal that is probably one of a kind, a crazy modulation pedal that has a lot of character and a gritty and gnarly lo-fi nature. So let's go. So this is the external internal by Empty Head Effects. This is the second review that I'm doing for an Empty Head Effects pedal. The first one was the Lover, which is a crazy overdrive pedal, and you can find the video in the description or somewhere up here in the cards. This was the first Empty Head Effects pedal. It was released around a year ago, and when it first got out, it made quite a buzz. The external internal is based on the legendary PT2399 chip that is used for hundreds of effects pedals so far for delays and modulation effects, because after all, delay is the mother of a ton of modulation effects like chorus, vibrato, flanger, whatever. The cool thing about it is that it's not just a modulation pedal, because it also has a few gain stages that can drive and make your sound much more punchy and gritty. And it's also really expressive because it can listen to your playing and interact with it and have more modulation based on your playing, which is really useful and feels great when you play with it. It's really dynamic, and while it is a lo-fi pedal, it has this lo-fi character. It's not your typical tape effect kind of pedal that we've seen tens of times. And the combination of modulation, delay, and drive plus fuzz, it's a combination that is probably one of a kind. I've never seen a pedal do those things together and be so cohesive and really fun to play with it. So let's explore this pedal and find out what it can do, check out all of its features, what everything does, and we'll see if that's your next modulation effect. So as we said, the external internal is a modulation pedal with a few gain stages and some other tricks up its sleeve. So you have 5 knobs, 1 switch and 2 foot switches. This one is to engage the pedal, and the other one engages the external internal circuit that we're going to talk about later. On the top you have your loudness control, that is your volume, the unquieting, that is some kind of overdrive that you have to open up just a tiny bit to listen to the pedal. The anxiety and depth knobs, that is the rate and the depth of your modulation, and the separation knob that delays your signal and creates this sort of slapback or doubling effect that we're gonna talk about later on. So I'm using a guitar with humbucker pickups going straight into the external internal, and after that to the mother preamp going straight into the audio interface, where I'm using IRs from Science Amplification, but also just a tiny bit of reverb from Valhalla Vintage Verb. So my dry signal sounds like this. So let's start by engaging the pedal, setting everything to 0. And we're going to start listening to it. So as we said, if you don't use the unquieting knob, you're going to hear nothing. So you have to start introducing some kind of drive to listen to the pedal. You can get some clean tones out of the external internal, but you always have some kind of drive coming through it. You can balance your volume and your drive control to set your sound. So the moment you engage the pedal, you immediately have some kind of effect with those two knobs alone. To my ears, it sounds like there is some kind of, I don't know, EQ happening that kind of makes your signal a bit more hollow and lacking some low end. I don't know if it's in my head, but that's what I'm listening to. It's like opening up some of the trebles and the high frequencies and removing just a tiny bit of your bass frequencies. So let's start introducing some modulation. The external internal uses a triangle LFO. So you immediately hear how cool the modulation sounds. You can get really extreme with it. You can crank up the depth to get a fully warbly signal. Anxiety, which is your rate, can go up to really extreme settings. My favorite settings is to have both knobs around noon, where you get a lot of modulation but not going into the extreme. After that, we have the separation knob that uses the delay chip that is inside this pedal to produce a single delay, and it can create two types of effects that are really cool in my opinion and really useful. So the separation knob, as we said, has a single delay each time. If you have it below noon, let's say, you get some sort of doubling effect that you might not hear at first, but it's definitely there. So let's just listen without it again. When you increase the separation, then the delay that we were talking about is clearly audible. So now you can hear that we have two sounds. And when we set that to 100%, it sounds like this. It is, of course, a very short delay. You cannot use this pedal as a delay, but when you do that, you thicken up your sound by a ton because you have that second sound coming right after your initial sound. If I remove the separation, you will understand how less thick your sound is. And again with 100%. And lastly, we have the switch that introduces the self mod. The self mod enables an input envelope modulation, which means that the harder you play, the more modulation you're gonna get. And it's somehow tied to the separation knob, so the more separation you get, the more profound this effect becomes. So now we have the separation maxed out, and I'm gonna engage the self mod so you can understand what we're talking about. So now I'm playing really softly. The moment I play harder, you will immediately understand that the depth and the modulation increases. So the pedal becomes very, very responsive to your playing. So that was the overview of the knobs and the self mod. My favorite settings using the external internal are having the modulation rate and depth around 12 o'clock, having a slightly driven sound and separation at around 11 o'clock without the self mod. And because you have to use the drive and you will probably never get like a super clean tone out of it, the combination is beautiful sounding, has a lo-fi character, but it's not your typical, tape effect. And lastly, we have the second foot switch that enables the external internal. Here you have to be careful with your volume because it's going to add a ton of it. This is some kind of fuzz that is added on top, and yeah, it gets crazy really fast. So let's hear some examples of that. Yeah, you get the point, right? So let's decrease the drive and the volume to see how clean we can get with it. Clean, because it's never gonna be clean enough. Yeah, the external internal is pretty destructive in a good way, I think. When you engage it, it immediately screams solo playing, I guess, which I cannot do, so I'm gonna try to play you some separate notes so you can hear how thick and powerful they get. So now we're going to use the OP1 as our synthesizers, because the external internal is also a great lo-fi pedal for synthesizers. Here is the OP1 without any effects. Keep in mind that a synthesizer is a line level instrument, and this pedal is primarily made for guitars, so the line level signal is way too hot for drive pedals and fuzz pedals, so you have to have your unquieting knob much lower so that you don't have too much of a drive. So let's engage the pedal and see how it can transform a synthesizer. Now it's very, very subtle. We're almost fully clean, and we have some modulation going. Without it. And with it. You get that really crunchy, nice drive sound alongside modulation, which is always a good idea when you're using synthesizers. I love this pedal. I think that it's really unique, really fun, and also has this really loud and aggressive character that you won't find in most modulation pedals. I'm not a really huge modulation fan, but in this context, with the gain stages, the self-modulation, and the separation knob that does really cool effects, I think modulation stays in the background somehow, and it's there but it's not overtaking. So that's the reason I really enjoy using this pedal for synths and mainly for guitar. It just sounds good. I think the word that describes it best is gnarly and gritty, because it's really aggressive but also lush and beautiful sounding depending on how you use it. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, you can leave a like or subscribe to this channel, because a lot of reviews are coming in the following months, and I hope to see you on the next one. Love you.